500 watching points. Watching point number 55. Watch, lest in your endeavor to apply absolute science to the human problem, you feel that you should ignore the claims of material sense, since it is unscientific to acknowledge them. This error is seen in those who talk in terms of absolute science all the time, and rebuke those who voice anything concerning the human problem. Such an attitude, Mrs. Eddy says, may be a tedious mischief maker. On page 252 of Science and Health, she writes, "A knowledge of error and of its operations must precede that understanding of truth which destroys error." When an architect designs a structure, he draws his conception on paper. Then comes its construction. In establishing the true sense of man, the perfect model must be formed in thought. Then, with this perfect ideal before one, he can carve it out in his daily life. Thus, the practical demonstration in science is the effort to make one's ideal an actuality, always bearing in mind the difference between the ideal and the demonstration of the ideal. One is the science one sees, and the other is the science one understands. One must never permit an element of error to enter into one's scientific conception. In his demonstration of that ideal, there is much error to be detected and eliminated. Thus, demonstration involves error to be acknowledged as a false claim to be destroyed, whereas absolute science makes no such acknowledgement. Mrs. Eddy once wrote, quote, "The Christ is the manifestation of truth, and this truth came not to destroy, but to fulfill the law of life, and to perfectly realize all of its manifestations." It is reported that Jesus said on one occasion, "These things ought ye to have done, and not to leave the others undone." The healer in Christian Science carries two lines of thought. First, the approximation to the truth, and second, the final truth. He argues for all the manifestations of health of body. At the same time, he argues that man is God's own image and likeness. In the words of St. John, "Now are we the sons of God." The healer does not discourage the thought by trying to make that appear first, which is not the beginning, but the end of the desired result. The full consummation of life, truth, and love is not reached at once, but through the footsteps, as did the apostle. When we have reached divine understanding through these footsteps, we shall then know the way, the truth, and the life. Then we shall find ourselves the image and likeness of divine love, the child of God, the offspring of spirit, never born of the flesh nor of the will of man, but coexistent with the eternal and infinite God. End quote.